Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the HR Committee. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Chair Curry.
Present.
Director Harrington, who is serving as a substitute member.
Present.
Director Robinson.
Present.
Director Swell is absent, and Chair Garza is absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you. The next regular meeting of the Human Resources Committee is scheduled for Thursday, May 9th, 2024 at 12 p.m. Have any members joined us virtually?
Chair Taylor has joined us remotely, but we do not need a motion for him.
We do not. Okay. I'd ask, Madam Secretary, if anyone has registered to provide in-person or virtual oral testimony or submitted written testimony to be included in the record.
We do have some registrations. The first person to speak is Angelica Moore. And just a reminder, you have 3 minutes, and when you get to about 2 minutes and 30, I'll give you a heads up.
Good afternoon. My name is Angelica Moore. I'm currently a nurse practitioner working in the burn unit. I have been working at John H. Schroeder Hospital for a total of 20 years in various departments and along the bedside as well. I've worked in neonatal ICU, pediatric ICU. I decided to go back and further my education. I am currently a nurse practitioner, a family nurse practitioner. To help my community, I enjoy working and servicing our surrounding community, which is a very unique population with various comorbidities and diseases. Recently, in the fall, I started picking up overtime to help out nursing shortages. So my fellow colleagues were calling me and begging, asking to work because there was such a big need, and patient safety is the biggest concern of ours. I started working in the fall, and approximately 1 or 2 months ago, I had pre-approved scheduled shifts that were denied. They were wiped out of the system with no further notice or notification, which is a significant concern, being that there's such a huge need and a nursing deficit. There's so many vacancies throughout the whole Schroeder Hospital, several hundreds of vacancies. This is impacting patient care and further impacting their results. It's very concerning. Human Resources is suddenly telling us that myself, as nurses that went back to school, clinicians, educators, nurse practitioners, are not allowed to pick up shifts when there's such a need and a shortage. Asking the board to take corrective action to help us offset this nursing shortage. We demand the committee to order and cease all overtime denials of clinicians, practitioners, educators to assist the bedside when we are needed so badly. We are highly trained healthcare providers. Why are we being denied in home? It's not right and it doesn't make any sense. We urge you to do whatever is needed to be done, that nurses and regular staff welcome, and we are able to pick up any available shifts. Being denied is greatly, as I mentioned, impacting care and safety. Please take corrective action. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
The next speaker has joined us remotely, and that's Brenda Langford. Brenda, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Brenda Langford, the NNOC board member and co-chief nurse representative at Schroeder Hospital, and I've worked at Cook County for 25 years. Our health system is being negatively impacted by lack of inefficiencies and standards within our finance and payroll department processes. Our nurses have negotiated retention pay with retroactive pay, which was voted on by the Cook County Commissioners, that still has not been distributed to nurses because of a lack of staff in the finance and payroll department to process those payments. There's also a process problem with chargebacks for nurses that want to volunteer for overtime opportunities. These inequities in processing payroll payments are preventing our nurses from having safe staffing, and they're driving nurses away from their passion for the nursing profession due to unsafe staffing and from a lack of distribution of negotiated compensation for the quality work that we provide. We're asking for safe scheduled staffing and for Cook County to stop delaying negotiated pay for our nurses. Withholding negotiation increases can be perceived as a method to further the staffing crisis at Cook County. Our nurses are underpaid, understaffed, and overworked. Our hospital system has worked with short staffing and fewer than nurses than what our staffing plans are supposed to ensure. There are some nurses that are even being denied overtime opportunities because of a lack of cooperation with timekeepers and payroll to provide chargeback processes for overtime distribution across the hospital, across the affiliates, and across nursing classifications, even with qualifications or credentials. Cook County needs to find a way to overcome its payroll chargeback problems. Our union has been attempting to negotiate with Cook County for over a year for extra shift bonuses that may encourage more of our own nurses to volunteer for overtime opportunities by adding bonuses to pick up an extra shift based on the number of overtime hours worked on top of wages. Cook County is still utilizing agency staff for regular hours and for overtime hours instead of offering opportunities to our own Cook County employed staff. NNOC is seeking to meet with Cook County Health Management to negotiate for extra shift bonuses to recruit our dedicated and committed nurses to pick up extra shifts to ensure that we have safe staffing to deliver nursing care to our very deserving patient population. We believe if we can get these pay issues resolved and negotiations for extra shift bonuses, it would offer some relief and flexibility in the staffing crisis at Cook County. NNOC is asking for Cook County Health, the Finance Department, and Payroll to release the negotiated retroactive pay to NNOC nurses and to develop the needed processes for chargeback pay for hospital operations to ensure that the hospital is safely staffed to provide care for our patients and our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Langford.
We do not have any more registered speakers, but we did receive the written testimony from Ms. Langford that will be included in the record. And we also received petitions from NNOC that will be scanned and sent you and made part of the meeting packet.
Thank you. Next, we'll have a report from the Interim Chief Human Resources Officer, Carrie Pramuk-Bolt, and she will review that report with us.
Good afternoon. Carrie Pramuk-Bolt, Interim Chief Human Resources Officer. Okay, we will start on the next slide. This first slide shows the activity in recruitment for the last 2 months. Start of the fiscal year was December 1st, 2023. So this data is through January 31st, 2024. And it identifies that we've already filled 179 positions. 132 of those were through external hires, and so not through just internal transfers or promotions. And the offer acceptance rate for these last 2 months has been 69%. Next slide. This is our separations report for the quarter, quarter one for the last 3 years. So this quarter we had 118 separations in the last 2 months. And as you can see, that is a much better number over the last 2 years that preceded. So 2022 and 2023 had higher separations in December and January. And then the graph on the right-hand side of the slide shows a breakdown of which ones were retirements, which is, and then there were resignations and then discharges. And as you can see, for 2024, a significant number were retirements versus resignations. This slide, we're happy to report, is our net new hire look from 2019, so pre-pandemic, through the pandemic, and then into how quarter one of FY 2024 is going. And we're pleased that all of the different recruitment and retention efforts that we have been implementing over the last year, year and a half, are really starting to show in these numbers. So as you can see, pre-pandemic, our net new hires were at 29 for the whole of 2019. And then after a serious, the Great Resignation and COVID and all the high retirements that were going on throughout the pandemic, in 2023, our net new hire for the whole fiscal year was 291. And then for quarter one so far, so we're only partially through quarter one, we're at 14 as a net new, which is half of what it was in 2019 as a year total. So we're very excited that a lot of the programming and endeavors that we have been utilizing to increase recruitment and retention seem to be working pretty well. The last part of this section of the metrics is this is more informational. As you know, we have been putting in a lot of automation over the last year and a half related to our recruitment and onboarding efforts to increase the satisfaction of our new hires as well as our transfers and promotions. And so over the year, we implemented many automation. So if you see that pictogram on the right, it shows you a bunch of smaller blue boxes. So each of those was a separate system and a separate endeavor. And we are just going live with what's called the position status application, which is to take all of those different automation techniques that we've been utilizing and give it an umbrella, a place for all of that data to congregate, and so that we don't have manual entry for any of the data for our metrics and reporting and tracking of how we are doing with our recruitment, retention, and other endeavors in the HR department. And so, the real benefits are it's going to take that new suite of tools and combine them so that we can report out better and we can track better. It's also going to reduce the time spent. So it'll allow our recruitment team and our operations team time to do more of the legwork instead of the data entry work that was going on through our multiple manual processes. So we're very excited. We just got started 2 weeks ago with this, and so we're very anxious to see how this is going to continue to reduce time. We've already seen a reduction in time over the last 2 weeks, but we're calculating that, and we'll come back to you with those numbers once we have a few months of data under our belt.
Was this attributable to any one or group of vendors that we've worked with who took the lead on pulling this together, or is this internal?
It was a combination effort of internal and our work that we were doing with Slalom. Yeah.
Slalom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one other question, I'm sorry to let you go on. With the acceptance ratio, offer acceptance ratio at 69%,
mm-hmm.
did that move much in the last quarter, up, down, or about the same? Do you call it?
So we haven't been tracking it month over month. We're doing it quarter by quarter. So after we get this month's data, they're going to generate that. Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, so the very exciting part of my report today is to talk about the accelerated nurse hiring process. So a couple more slides. Next one, there we go. All right, so the pilot was from August 7th of 2023 through February 6th, so it ended just last week. And we are exercising our ability to extend the pilot for another 6 months. We've sent that request for authorization to the Inspector General and Employment Plan Office this week, and so we hope to hear from them imminently. We don't anticipate any issues with that, and we expect to be able to continue this pilot. We had, as of the end of January 31st, so that we can put the data together for you, we had 204 accepted offers through this accelerated hiring program, and it allowed us to onboard 143 nurses externally, and there were also 61 internal transfers and promotions that took part in this as well, leading to exceeding our goal of getting 150 positions filled through this process. But with 143 external, that net new for us is also very exciting that we almost hit that 150 mark just with those alone. So the acceptance rate through this program at the time was 62%. The decline rate was 38%. So on par with our, it's just a little bit below what our average is for all of our positions here at the organization. And we are doing some additional tweaks to the procedures in the next phase in order to try to make those numbers a little bit better.
I'm sorry, just to make sure, you said you're extending it again for 6 months, and there is something set in place to make it permanent?
There is a process, an amendment to the employment plan that we can make to make it permanent. What we're doing is we're going to take all of what happened during the first 6 months and that procedure we used, and we've made some refinements for this next 6 months. And then in the first 90 days of the next phase extension period, we're going to analyze if those were improvements or not to the program, and then we are going to work with the Inspector General and Employment Plan Office to make it a permanent part of our employment plan.
So when making it permanent, the idea would be to give flexibility to flex up and down, because if I remember correctly, the void that we're trying to fill is going to take 2 or 3 years.
Correct.
Therefore, we want to have the ability to make adjustments so that we can actually achieve we can fill all the vacancies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It will be adding it as a separate process that will have parameters for who and when we can use it, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, next slide.
No,
Oh, go ahead.
we had 365 people accepted offers, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh, no, we made 365 offers.
offers.
We
204 accepted.
Correct.
Okay, 204 accepted. And you don't have to do it now, but it'd be interesting to see, because they were in different categories, if that got us any closer to filling some of the gaps that we have. So I don't know how many went to the different areas.
Oh, yes, we are looking at that data right
So
now.
we still have gaps, but maybe we're closer to closing some gaps as opposed to others.
Yes, that is true. And I believe with this process, if I recall the data correctly, CERMAC was able to fill a large number of their vacancies. And so they are actually not going to participate in the pilot for the roles they had been participating previously, because they had gotten close enough to their goal that they're going to use the hiring fairs to, and you'll see on the next slide that, that there are multiple avenues for them to do hiring, and now they're weighing those decisions about where they need to put their efforts. And so for CERMAC specifically, they've opted for not the accelerated process, because they've gotten what they feel they needed from that process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, let me add this other, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dr. Roberts.
Okay, this slide is interesting, and this is a question, not negative, but trying to go forward.
Mm-hmm.
The 140 declines, do we know why?
For some of them we do, yes. And we are looking through and analyzing that particular data. But for some people, sometimes do not tell us, and then sometimes we get ghosted. So yes, but for the ones that provide data to us, absolutely, we're looking through that.
Okay, and the next thing is understanding that CERMAC is feeling very good about their position where they are. The other question becomes, because the problem occurred over a long period of time, and without looking at any information, my thought would be it occurred because there were not procedures and protocols and to monitor the level of vacancies that are occurring, so that you could actually timely get enough people in the pipe to be able to get enough to accept and say yes. So are there procedures put in place to be able, so that we don't go back down this path? None of us may be here, but if the procedures are there, then it'll last as long as the organization lasts. So are you putting anything in place that will help to monitor so that we do not repeat this problem?
Yes, and Dr. Peters has put together a team specifically in nursing that collaborates very closely with HR, and in particular the nursing business, the HR business partner for nursing, to make sure that those tracking mechanisms are in place. They're building out better and more efficient ones as they're learning more about how things move through the system. And then as we're putting in these different pathways for recruitment purposes for them, they're adjusting accordingly. But yeah.
Fantastic.
So if I may, two things I'd like to just add. a little to your remarks if I was listening correctly. One, I think the second was about smoke, being able to respond as soon as we smell smoke and not waiting for the fire to be there. And I think I heard that things are being developed and put together that allows us to move more quickly in those areas as soon as the smoke comes. The other is a formal request for the declinations that occur for people who decline these positions. Let's have that as part of a standard report going forward in that area. Recognize we don't get it for everything, but for the ones we do, let's look on a detailed basis what those reasons are. And I'm tracking back to Director Harrington as well, because this one is critical. As we look at the progress that's being made here with the additions on the accelerated nursing, there's a couple questions. Number one, overall though, are we making ground in terms of filling the total numbers? But more importantly, in certain areas, are we picking up some gains, but are we losing some traction or remaining the same and not going forward? Terrible analogy, but what came to mind visually is that game the kids used to play when you're
Whack-a-mole.
That's right. We're knocking some down, but somebody else pops ahead of somewhere else. So just want to make that point that it's really important that we know across the board in individual areas how the progress is making and moving forward.
Right, and without the data exactly in front of me, I do remember that a large portion of the declines came from the shift that was being offered.
Well,
So,
one of the things too, I think would be helpful, and you may have this and we're just not having it because you can't show us everything, but if you have, do you guys use Tableau?
we do.
Okay, so in Tableau, you can be able to set up your dashboard so you can have everything and see the different positions. And when you come here to us, presenting that, because that gives us a holistic view of really what's happening. So you can present that to us to say what's happening overall, then you can show us the path to how you're trying to get to your goal. That would be extremely helpful so that we can believe that your actions are either helping, or if they're not helping, then you'll show us how you're making the corrections. The whole idea is when you say it with charts, then it gives us a good visual to be able to understand. And if there's something we can do that you want from us, then that gives the visualization for us to help us to understand it and to be able to try to assist you in your need, if that makes sense to you guys.
It does.
Go ahead, Dina. Dina has a response to that.
Yes, Dr. Peters.
I don't know what's going on with that.
Dina Peters. I can speak for specific to nursing. So we do have a tableau. We looked at it. Based on these processes, nursing for 2023, the net gain is total of 61 positions and 32 RNs. And furthermore, that we calculate and see how many agency dollars we can remove. That is close to $5 million. So we have that structure built into specific to look at it, how many we are hiring. And also we look at the nursing turnover, which actually we are really doing well. Our turnover is 10.2, where the national is 10.23. And also that is a decline from last year, which is good, 12.2 to 10. So those are the key metrics. Look at it from a Tableau, and we partnership with HR.
99. You're not new.
Yeah. So it's 99. It's growing between us.
Oh.
Okay. So we do have that. So, but I think more to come on that. That's very important. Tableau, we use that quite a bit at all levels, including our position management.
I am a huge fan of Tableau.
Okay.
And you have to create it to make sure it's showing you what you want it to see, and being able to hold an open discussion. Then you may discover there's some things that you're not looking at, you should be looking at. I don't know, in the previous session, there was some information that was presented, but being able to present it in a way that you can actually garner information from it, because numbers for the sake of numbers, it doesn't do anyone any good, but insight is what we're looking for, and being able to give us that. That's why I'm asking for that, because if you put it up there, you'll give me a chance to think. And if I think, I can hopefully help. If I can't help, then I need to leave.
We'll take all the help we can get.
No, thank you. This is very helpful.
You know, I think it's critically important for this reason. I know we get numbers in isolation sometimes for narrow reporting periods, and we don't always tie it back to what was previously reported to show that movement. I was thinking back to July of 2020, my very first meeting here on the board. And numbers aside for a minute, the perception was then that we're losing ground and we're not making progress, when we all know that significant progress has been made against those front ties that were coming in. So I think it's important that the stories that we're telling based on this data show realistically that there have been forward and positive movements in these areas, so we can begin shifting that perception. It's a great story, but we need to find a way for everyone that's listening and understanding. So that's why it's so important to have these things tied. For me, it's always, here's where we were at step 1 4 years ago. Despite these sites, here we are today. And even in some respects, that story was just one that we held our own and we didn't lose ground. We looked nationally how we're performing against others. That's a very positive story. So it's very important. You certainly have the support here with all of these programs that you've entered into and things that you have implemented. We want to make sure we get that out to the many publics and the communities that we have as well that follow the story that we're talking about at these committee meetings. Thank you.
One of the other things in the finance committee was mentioned. I don't think you had a chance to see that, Chair. But
I was in the back watching.
Okay. I'll stop there. Okay. Well, it's worth putting it in the record that Dr. Peters showed us some numbers that were just absolutely fantastic, and they're doing a bang-up job, and she should be commended again very much.
It was a help, right?
Okay.
For both of you, because it was just simply fantastic, and I can't say enough, because from a business perspective, you know, they put you on the shoulders and they throw you a parade with those type of numbers, and the chair can surely attest to that after being a chief officer with one of the larger organizations in the country and being able to see how that can impact the organization.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Oh, no.
I've been watching you for a long time. You're a great man.
Like so long ago. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next slide shows a little bit more of a breakdown of these numbers, as well as compares to what we were filling. So what you see on the slide on the left-hand side, or the graph on the left-hand side, is our vacant versus the filled positions that were dedicated to this accelerated nursing hiring program specifically. And it's broken up by our affiliates. So you can see where our affiliates were really making a difference. And so we had, for instance, if you look at the Stroger bar graph all the way on the right of that particular graph, there were 333 PIDs that were put into play for the accelerated hiring process, and we filled
60.
Yes, we filled, numbers are harder to read on that and on this, 89 external fills, or 82 were external, sorry, the numbers are a little off, but as you can see, we've broken it out for you. The numbers are a little small on this graph and hard to read with the colors. And then if you look at the graph on the right, that's comparing it to the other hiring processes that we were doing simultaneously with the accelerated process and how successful they were comparatively as well. So you can see we did have hiring fairs that nursing participated in, but a smaller number of positions were used in the hiring fairs because we had placed so many in the accelerated process. So of the 39 positions put in to the hiring fair, we filled 6 of them, and they were external hires, all 6 of them, which is great. However, comparatively, you can see that accelerated process was proportionately doing much better we placed almost 200 positions in it, and we filled 141 as of the date of this data. We still used our normal actively recruited process as well. That's the data all the way to the right on that second graph. They still had a large number of vacancies that were going through that process, and that's our traditional process that we utilize with nursing. And so that was also still in queue and in play for that about 120 vacancies during that same time frame. So this graph to me shows me that the accelerated hiring process was really useful for us at that clinical nurse 1 level, and that proportionately it was giving us the best return rate. All right, this next slide shows you a little bit of that number crunching we were doing with the people who did accept our offers. And so we had a higher rate of 71%, and net new hires of 99. So nursing was able to decrease that vacancy without a turnover implication by 99 nurses out of that 150 plus that we hired through this process. So, and that's just this process alone. So we're really pleased with that number, with that retention rate being 86%. But that pie graph on the far right is the most interesting. So the nursing leadership team and our HR business partner pulled the new hires through this process. After some of them had been here 30 days, some of them had been here 60 or 90 days already. And they asked them a series of questions. We had a 35% return rate on the survey that went out to all those individuals. And of that, you can see that the majority, 23 of them, of the 35% that responded, intend to stay here more than 3 years. And so that speaks to not only their satisfaction with their hiring, but also their onboarding and all the programming that goes into the onboarding and orientation processes, as well as the culture that they are getting enmeshed in once they start here at CCH.
Here's a question. When we start looking at the ones that we hired, I'm trying to remember, and Dr. Peters may have to help me out, but you may know, but there was where you were having difficulty in trying to retain or either hire in positions. It wasn't the entire body of nurses, but the seniority of the nurse in different, there were 2 categories where it seemed to be really tough to get people. And no one's remembering what I'm talking about. I think you have like the 1 to 3 year, but then you had like the 11. Okay, that's exactly what I'm referring to.
Okay.
Peters again. I think you're talking about the nursing turnover, where we divided that into by tenure. So the nurses between the 1st and their 5th year, the turnover rate is much higher.
Right.
However, when you compare that with the nationally, we are below, because I think the younger ones are turning more, and they're not, that. But if they are here for 10 years, that is pretty solid. People are staying. So we are now creating the programs very specific to the early turnover, the team. Okay. Because the new nurses are like, they come in with a clear goal. I want to be a nurse practitioner in 2 years. I want to be this. And they tell me I want to be a CNA, which I love it. But then they're not going to stay like the nurses used to stay in our system. So we have that data. I am happy to share because we are focusing on that group. And also we introduced a program called Transition to Practice. That is the national best practice to retain new graduate nurses. And that particular program nationally show an 85% retention rate. And we started that program in 2022, January or February. And I think that is really all of them are staying too. So we are bringing programs specific to them to address the gap.
Fantastic, because again, if we look at the numbers, we need to know what to do and when to do it. And if it follows the natural occurrence, it's going to move. And if it moves, we need to know it's moving so we can move with it, so we can put the focus in the right place, which it sounds like you're doing.
For that one we are, and one day we'll talk about our projected retirement. It's coming, we have it, so, but we'll talk further. I don't want to, take more time.
Okay.
We'll come back with that.
We'll look forward to it.
Okay, so any questions, other questions about the accelerated nurse hiring process? This is the last slide on that. Okay.
What was the bottom part? You had 91
sure.
days or more, 5, 3,
So the retention rate, that breaks down our retention rate. And so those are the people who resigned. So we had 4 that resigned within the 61 to 90 days. We had 5 that resigned after 91 days. We only had 3 that resigned the 31 to 60 days, and only 4 during the 1 to 30-day time period.
And these are the new hires?
Yeah.
Oh.
These are, yeah, and that was my numbers that I just spouted were the both combination of resignations and discharges. So
Okay, but they're all new people.
they're all new people through
Okay.
this accelerated program, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the last couple of slides are about what happens once they're here. So this slide talks about our, the fundamentals about our new hire experience from when onboarding begins after that offer is accepted all the way through their first year of employment with us. And so this is how we have broken it down and are working with the different departments and teams within and outside of HR to ensure we're enhancing that new hire experience and immersing them in our culture from day one, and so that they know what our values are, what our mission is, and we are training them to those things from the very beginning. That started with the orientation revamp that we talked about last time, and it's continuing with different training programs that are now either affiliate or department specific, both through HR follow-ups as well as what the departments are organizing with the organization development team. And then the last slide just shows some of the different learning opportunities that are available. So we've got those first two blocks that show what all managers and staff have at their disposal to keep them engaged, to answer their questions and help them transition into the system or into new roles, as well as for those who are seasoned employees, we gear sessions towards them in a different way, but they help them build and grow in their pathways as well. And then the other two blocks are for, we do team building and we do team recruitment and different team workshops, as well as those that are affiliate and department specific.
So, is the Cook County Learning Institute then
Yes.
fully operational now? I mean, is it up and running and?
It is up and running. We roll out new programming through it on a regular basis, but the institute itself is up and running. Yep.
I'm curious, the information that you have, is this a result of what, staff members have stated that they would like?
It's filling both gaps we recognized through, our data analysis, as well as feedback from staff through, prior employee engagement surveys. We will have an upcoming employee engagement survey this May, which will give us additional feedback, and then we will adjust accordingly to that as well.
Data analysis, is that survey or is that something else?
So through all of our different exit discussions and strategies with people leaving the organization, our new hire check-ins that our team does with the new hires as they are going through those first 30 and 90 days, and all of that data that they're building through that. Yep.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, I'd like to move down to item 4, action items. And the minutes of the Human Resources Committee meeting of November 17th, 2023. These were approved by the board at the January meeting, but are being presented for the committee's review and discussion if necessary. Were any corrections needed to be made to the minutes? Any corrections? Okay. Then I'd like to entertain a motion to accept item 4A, which is the November 17th committee meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If no further discussion and hearing now, I'd like to call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. I don't believe that there are any items that would take us to a closed meeting.
That's correct.
No closed meeting. So we do not have any items for closed meeting discussion today. So if there are no other questions or items to discuss, let's move on to adjournment. And as the agenda is exhausted, I declare that the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.